everybody, and welcome to this show of Faith and Family First. I'm your host, Eva Andrade. I'm here with Marcus Oshero. We're going to be talking about ballot issues. We're going to be talking about election integrity and the missing $35,000 that Marcus probably has under the table right now. So stay tuned and let's chat about that.
I don't have it.
I don't know, Marcus. You're a legislator.
Wait a minute.
Do we need to, or you're an ex-legislator, do we need to question all things of all legislators now because of the secrecy? I mean, should people be concerned?
I think the question is whether something went down, which was bad, not good, maybe illegal, and whether that individual or individuals are still holding public office.
Stay tuned because we're going to chat about that later on in the show. Let's start with our friend, the Supreme Court, which is how we ended our last discussion. Because there is a Supreme Court case that we didn't mention in the last show because I wanted to spend time talking about it today. And that's the challenge to states that allow grace periods or counting ballots received after Election Day. Okay, so I want to talk about, first of all, why the case even matters.
Well, it matters because when you have same-day voting, when you have walk-in voting, when you have mail-in voting, you have all the variables of counting and voting and the electorate voting. Also with that is when do you count the votes? What are the votes that should be counted and processed and taken into account? And they're all over the place right now. So I think the issue is to determine what is the deadline, if there's a deadline, and if there's no deadline, what are the remedies for
So do you
the
think
ballots?
there is a problem? Do you think, and I'm not asking you if you think there's fraud. Well, I think there's always fraud. There's always. In every,
No, I don't think there's
nothing's
always
perfect. Nothing's
fraud.
perfect.
Because fraud, F-R-A-U-D, fraud has a special meaning of intention. I think there are accidents.
There are agents, in my opinion, that commit fraud throughout elections on both sides. I mean, that's because things like receiving ballots, getting ballots, the signatories on the not on the ballots, but on the registration and all that. I think that there is maybe not widespread fraud.
I have never seen fraud, and I don't recall any case in recent memory anyone being prosecuted for fraud. So I can't say that I think there is fraud. There may be fraud-like actions, but no conviction of fraud.
Okay,
no determination of fraud.
You're an attorney, so you're going to definitely,
I'm going to be a little more conservative.
More conservative than me. And the only reason I say this is because I know human nature. So I'm not making the claim. Whenever you have any institution or you have any law or just any guidelines, there's always people, again, agents that will act with malicious intent. But I guess intent's always the issue, right? Now, how do you prove?
Yeah, intention is that's it. You have to have some intent of activity or of intention of outcome or intention of what you're doing, right? So that's always the question. There are accidents. There's negligence. People sloppy. They're tired, stressed out.
Right. And I don't see that as fraud. Like
that's right. But things.
So
until such time, I got to give people the benefit of the doubt that, hey, maybe it was a stressful.
I love that about you.
You're a short staff. You guys had to do the work.
What I'm talking,
the deadlines are coming hard and fast.
Well, and I guess that's why I'm thinking in cases like this where you have a deadline, right? So all the votes need to be in by this time. But then you have a group of legislators or whatever who come together and go, you know what? Let's interpret this different. Let's look at what's written in the law and let's say maybe it's not so hard and fast. Maybe let's give, because that's what happened during the lockdown. During the COVID lockdown, there were, in my opinion, shenanigans that was happening in certain decisions to allow certain voting to happen a certain way.
The entire shutdown decision, and as far as what the federal government did, the state government did, I think there are going to be many, many more term papers, reports for high school, college, for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
I agree.
Analyzing it.
Yeah.
Because looking back, 2020 hindsight, we can see the decisions that were made, some based in law, some based in fact, some based in speculation, some based in paranoia, and much of it just based upon the whim of those in power.
Exactly.
Because I saw it before my very eyes.
Yeah.
Shutting down of certain businesses.
I know it didn't.
I mean,
if there had been consistency and fairness, then I think that there would have been less outcry. But you're right. I mean, I think even the regular person was trying to make sense of the rules that were being made.
Yeah, it was pulled out of thin air. Okay. Not the,
yes. Yeah. Boy, that thin air.
Yeah.
We've talked about that
right,
quite a bit lately.
Right, the 6 foot distance. Yeah. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ask that doctor again.
I know. Well, that's okay. That would be a whole nother show.
Okay.
And maybe that one would go viral.
Okay, so the elections integrity is important.
Right.
And I think if there's any questions being raised right now, whether it's with the Hawaii State Elections Commission,
yes,
the majority of the members who just voted, and asking the legislature to look at returning to in-person, same-day, one-day voting. In other words, go to the polls, sign
like
the
old
poll book,
remember the old
show
days?
your ID, sign the poll book.
But you know what? I was thinking, if Hawaii goes back to the way it was done before, they still allowed absentee voting.
They did. It was very luxurious and very easy to get absentee voting.
Because I have been voting absentee. I'm one of the few people that I prefer when I'm voting to take my time.
Study it.
I don't want to go. I mean, now I realize that I could do that ahead of time and then go to the booth and go in.
Right,
but
with your shopping list.
With my and all that. But me, I prefer to be at my table with my coffee and my ballot, and because sometimes things happen right during the time of election, right? Things come out about people or whatever. And so I don't like to be rushed.
Yeah. No. Plus, you can ask your chat GPT how you should vote.
Oh my God, I would never. But that's an oh my God, that's a whole other thing.
But for me, I've always, I think this is the Elections Commission is looking at it right now. What happened on Kauai, what happened on Hawaii Island. I don't know if Maui or Oahu, but they look at raising these issues. And I think it's one of the commissioners themselves having some questions that they feel the Office of Elections hasn't properly answered them or provided them enough details or enough data to substantiate their decision. Those are the questions. And I think right now the legislature can and should address every single one before the election process begins, so that there's no question, and no speculation on the integrity of our elections.
So what's happening on the Supreme Court level, how does that tie in then to what, because Hawaii's already going through its own discussions of how to handle deadlines, but so how does it tie into what the Supreme Court is doing? Or does it?
It may or may not, depends upon how the Supreme Court rules, but there's always that right when there is a federal question in play, and there have been federal questions in play because you got congressional offices that are up for election in 2026. So that could be enough to set off, some effect of the Supreme Court's ruling.
Well, and Jim used to hate when I asked him this. So let's see if you hate it just as much. If you had to put on, look in the crystal ball, where do you think the Supreme Court's going to go on this? Or do you think it's too early because you haven't really seen
I like to look
arguments?
I like to look at the arguments. I like to sit through it, and I like to look at the briefs that come in. Some of the offline briefs. I mean, just the friend of the court briefs. But
Yeah, here's a little trivia piece. Hawaii Family Forum has been amicus in many marriage and family cases, you know.
in this case too,
Not in this one. We not that we're not watching it because we're very interested in election
Yeah,
integrity,
yeah,
as is most
yeah.
Americans. But being a friend of the court or submitting a friend of the court brief it's so exciting to me because we're helping in a sense the justices make their decision.
you know what? I congratulate you and thank you for participating because that takes time and money to put in the amici. You know. So,
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
so if you go to hawaiifamilyforum.org and you
Yeah.
sign up to get our alerts, you're going to know because I always let everybody know here's a brief we signed on and we give you that you can actually look at the brief.
Oh, no, that's important. You know, that's your time and dollar. And your name and reputation going on to that document.
And since 1998, we have supported a lot of family issues and with marriage and protection of kids in school and some of the stuff. So it's very interesting to pay attention to what's happening on the Supreme Court level. So
Yeah.
So thank you for that reminder.
We can have a show
partner.
just on that alone.
Oh, we need to-
Because there's so many cases up at this U.S. Supreme Court right now that are going to trickle down, have effect upon all the states, not only Hawaii but all the states.
You know what we can do?
I tell you.
There is a couple of cases that are sitting at Supreme Court that we have added our amicus to. So maybe we'll get those attorneys
that.
on, and
Yeah.
then
Oh, that'd be really
and
good.
then the
That'd be
attorney that's
fun.
and then because then you could ask questions and people could learn in the process.
Yeah.
So let's
Right.
do it. Let's do it. Okay, so let's talk about the
Gambling.
well, you got that bag under your desk.
No, I'm just kidding.
The million ballot issue versus election commission requests. This is you were talking about headlines that you saw, right? Large number of ballots with questionable timestamps, signature mismatching, and that sort of thing. You were going to look into that. Did you have a chance to look into
No,
that?
I haven't. I've just been watching what the local guys have been doing, not on the national level.
Okay. So as Marcus continues to look into that issue, we'll come back to that because when you sent that, it's like I didn't think about that. So that's a really good thing for us to discuss as well. Have you been paying attention? Like, have you been participating in those online Zoom meetings or at least watching them on
I've
this
been
whole
watching
elections?
some of them, but I haven't watched the last two ones because they go on for like 6-7 hours. I'm not going to.
We get a lot of people watching those and participating.
No, yeah, but,
Amazing.
but you know, to be honest, you know, it is what it is. But there are all kind of people coming in, which is good. You know, it's your government. You have a right. You have a responsibility. But some of them are so partisan, and they express themselves in a partisan manner. It really deflects from the issue at hand, the seriousness of the commissioner's decisions. You know, so I think that's a turnoff in a way, and it just prolongs the agony of the meeting that can be a lot shorter and more abbreviated and focused if people would just testify and speak to relevant matters before the commissioners. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, I tell you what, Marcus.
Because I'm not going to watch a public hearing for 6-7 hours. I mean, that's like overkill.
I have done it when it's been an issue we've been tracking. But,
that's like,
you know, it's like, and this is why one of the things that Hawaii Family Forum does is we go in and we train people how to do testimony because a lot of times they only give you a certain amount of minutes.
right.
And you know, because you sat on the other side of the
Right.
table,
Right.
you know, if you only have a minute or two to give testimony, what in that 2 minutes makes the most difference to you, in your opinion?
Right, exactly. That's what you need to know. Where you're standing in the position, yes or no, and why.
Yeah. So is it helpful when they get up and the first thing out of their mouth is, you need to be voted out of office?
No.
Although I know that people think that a lot.
Yeah, that's an inner
yeah.
thought that you might want to save for a private conversation or a letter, you know, something else.
Well,
But
what about if they start their testimony with scripture?
I think scripture, if it's relevant to the issue at hand, I'm sure that makes sense.
But does it make a difference, like for real?
I think it does. But again, the most important thing is where do you stand? Are you for it or are you against it, and why? That's all I need to know.
One of the things I encourage people is, number one, don't read your testimony. I know that some people feel more comfortable if they read it,
Yeah.
but especially if they only give you 2 minutes or whatever, because what I have seen happen, Marcus, is they'll start reading their testimony and then the buzzer will go off and they'll keep reading. And then the chair will say, your time is up. Thank you.
I think the written testimony has already been submitted. So that's part of the record, the written testimony. You can see it in writing. I think the most important thing, and I share this with people, speak from your heart and your head.
Yeah.
Speak from your heart
And
and your head.
stick to the issue at hand.
And look them in the eyes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Look them in the eyes. Tell 'em, I'm going to tell you this. I don't like this bill because of this. 1, 2, 3. You know, so I hope you don't support this. Or please support this. This is a good idea. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's it. But because the written testimony submission is already there before the legislators. Right?
Yeah. Well,
So add on.
again, I've had people that came up
Yeah.
and said, but I'm not a good public speaker. And I said, well, okay, if you want to read something, then don't rewrite your testimony.
No,
Just
no,
write something real quick, like you said, that's
Yeah.
from the heart.
Yeah.
And I would even say that okay, I don't have any problems speaking publicly, but if I did, I would say that, hey, I'm very nervous about
Yeah.
this. So I just wrote down what I want to say, and I will stick, and chair, I will stick to the 2 minutes.
Right.
And then I would even practice at home to make sure that I'm within that allotted time.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes they don't give you the allotted time. And if that's the case, but I still strongly say don't read the testimony, because you're not. So I've had people tell me that the reason they do that, though, is because they want it in the audio for people that are listening.
And I can see that. I think there's a purpose for that. I tell people never, ever stand in your written testimony unless it's repetitive. You've done it before. I said you have to go and speak into the microphone loud and clear, because people are listening in. It might be staff of legislators who are listening in because their legislators not going to listen to it. It's also the broadcast to the rest of the world, especially with the Zoom technology you're using today. There is a purpose of, expressing yourself on a microphone at a hearing.
Yeah, and someone who is comfortable speaking, to the public, you still have to think it through, because even me, when they give me 2 minutes, it depends. If the hearing has been going on, Marcus, for 4 hours already, I might stand on my testimony.
So because it's just probably getting repetitive. Right?
So if I don't have anything specific, I'll tell you, here's what I think a lot of times, right? Because I'm really, even though I'm representing Hawaii Family Forum, a lot of times, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a doctor, right? So I'm getting up and I'm saying, here's our concerns about this bill. And I've heard it already by a lot of people. So, but because I know what you're saying is very, very true, that it is important to go up. I've even made the mistake sometimes of getting up and kind of, sharing. And then when I sit down, I'm thinking, I probably should have said this or what. So, I mean, it's intimidating. It's intimidating to anybody to go up before legislators who are looking at you like you have a third eye.
Right. It's not a normal environment. You don't communicate with your friends and family over a table like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which is why one of the big things that I always tell people is make sure you have that relationship with your legislator, because to me, whatever happens in the room during testimony is one thing, but what you do when you're in their office, just chatting with them it means a lot. If your relationship has been built and they trust you, because I don't, there's a lot of legislators that don't agree with me. I have some that I go into their office and we disagree on every other issue, but maybe we're on the same side of gambling, or maybe we're on the same side of marijuana or whatever. And they trust. They trust that what we talk about in their office is going to stay in their office. And I think it's a good cockle relationship.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's important. Well, you kind of got off on that bunny trail. Okay, now, but since we're talking about legislators, where's the money? Where is that $35,000, Marcus?
Well, I think both the federal prosecutor.
Go back. What are we talking about first, for those that may not be paying attention, or maybe someone on the mainland?
Okay, so the gist of this whole thing is several years ago when one of the representatives.
And you were in office at the time. right?
Well, I knew both of them, the senator from Maui and the representative from Waipahu. I knew both of them. I left office. I was already on the labor board when they were indicted and when they went through the trial and everything else, and they settled with the federal prosecutor. But in the investigation that was done, sometimes through law enforcement, even maybe carrying a wire, they discovered that there was another elected official who possibly was given or handed or held some $35,000 cash, and it sounded like in a bag, maybe a paper bag or some envelope or something like that, that was not charged, but is identified in the investigative report by the federal prosecutors. They don't know if it's a criminal case, a issue, or ethics case, or campaign spending, or campaign, anything like that. But they know they have identified a person who has a name,
And it's allegedly a high-ranking legislator.
well, I don't think they're gone, but I think it's safe to say, according to what the media reports are, is it's identified as a elected official, probably legislative branch versus executive branch. At that time, when the investigation was done, and the representative Waipahu was involved in it, and I think the question that was raised by the Speaker of the House was, okay, can we go and assist? Should we do anything? Should we do an independent investigation?
And a petition by several hundred people in the community have demanded investigation.
The report from the federal side said, no, I think it's problematic. It can mess up our case, our investigation. It's a live, hot case. It could create problems for us because of witnesses, testimony, evidence, etc. And the Attorney General said, same thing. We agree with the federal prosecutor, so we're not going to get involved, and we'll just see what happens. So then this petition that I think the retired federal public defender and some other legislators say, hey, no, we want the legislature to take a serious look at this, use its investigative powers in the state house to go and subpoena people, put them on an oath, and find out really what's going on. So that's where it is right now. But I think the fact that the Speaker of the House wrote and she got a response from the federal prosecutors who are doing the investigation, who kind of warned or asked that they not get involved, I think that's going to probably rule the day right now. And there's not going to be any proceeding because of the concerns about how it can contaminate or affect the prosecution of the case, ongoing case by the federal prosecutors.
Well, I'll tell you what, we were talking earlier about election integrity. Now we're talking about the integrity of those that hold public office. Yeah. And I think that in order for trust to be reestablished between the public and our elected officials, this needs to be taken care of. And hopefully, as you mentioned, the law enforcement side of it will handle it, and then we will find out. Because if I was the legislator who did that, I would come out and I would say it was me, and I would step down and I would turn myself over to law enforcement, because that is the way to restore trust and integrity, is to But can they not do that? I mean, or
well, I think they can, but I think there's nothing publicly known that identify who the individual is. Whether it's it could be several individuals. This thing could unravel and implicate a lot of people, but we just don't know, and I think that's part of the problem with Epstein files.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good point.
So the Epstein files are going to be released, right? So it's going to be across the board. Anyone who has anything to deal with the emails.
So even innocent people are going to be
innocuous, passing by, a mere acquaintance, someone just came in and came out, went to a party, blah, 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 blah. It's on the list. It's going to be out there. So you can hurt their character, you can hurt their reputation, because they're out there, right? There's some tie to Jeffrey Epstein. So in a similar way, we have to be very careful about how we go about the investigation. I think that's where the federal prosecutor and the attorney general are in agreement. Like, okay, we're investigating it, we're taking it serious, we know the ramifications, we think it's important to have high, standards, the reputation of the legislature, right, and all of the elected officials, the integrity of the system. But let us handle it for now.
What about that? What about the 80-year-old guy that gave $20 to the, or what about that one, Morgan? Because I was thinking that the older generation, we're talking about a lot of them, and I'm not even saying it's right or wrong. So, I don't want people coming after me saying, well, bribe is a bribe. That's true. And as someone who, is an attorney, I know that you guys are at higher standards. And I have a friend that's a judge, and she'd be like, no, there's a high standard. But at the same time, like, my dad is going to be 90 years old. And in his generation, they call it like all females babe. Thanks, babe. Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And, because their generation just kind of looks. So I'm thinking, handing somebody, when I was growing up, how many older people would give me like $10, $5 for doing the right thing? I think that's just the way, I don't know. Am I like being too like.
Pollyanna?
Yeah. Pollyanna.
No. Yeah, I think it's that. Again, that's the whole thing about intention, the circumstances, everything that comes upon it, right? It's like, the guy goes in. I had a case like the guy goes into the store. He's shopping. He doesn't have a bag with him. He's stuffing stuff in his pockets. He's going to go out. So he goes to the cashier. He passes out, walks out of the store, but he forgets to pay for the scotch tape that's in his pocket. Right? The guy comes out, busted. You shoplifting. What? I bought all this stuff. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I mean, so what happens?
But he's still guilty.
Well, technically, but we got him off because it's like there's no intention, right? The guy, old man, right? You know what I mean? It's like, what's the, so, really intention, right?
I know, but it goes back to, we're talking about integrity here. And integrity is something that once you know that you've done something wrong, that's when you step up.
And you know what, Eva? I'm going to hope that individual, whoever he or she might be,
that's what I'm saying.
Can understand the gravity of that decision and the consequence of the decision. Because what happened several years ago with the state senator from Maui and the state representative from Waipahu was terrible. It was the worst. Front page, above the fold. These are elected officials being convicted, right, of crime.
Right. They lost their position in office.
Well, it shook both institutions.
Yeah,
it shook the legislative branch, you know what I mean?
And I knew both of them. They both were good guys. I mean, I shouldn't say good guys because somebody would question, but they were nice.
For the Democratic Party,
guys.
It was an embarrassment. It was like double black eye, okay?
Yeah.
So we hope that this is resolved and whoever he or she might be would confess and then plead.
Even if they didn't, because there are, not everybody knows everything about laws and rules.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been inadvertent.
Yeah, because, for instance, I live in Mililani, right? And the town association in Mililani is just, everybody who lives there understands that they have rules and regulations. You know how many good people I know that live in Mililani go, I didn't know that was the part of their regulations. When you're fixing your fence, you got to go through all of that,
Well, that's how the adage is there, right? They say, right, ignorance of the law is no defense.
No,
right.
Okay, and it is interesting because I remember in school we were taught that your character is what you do when no one is around. And so if you didn't know at the time, but you know now, the right thing to do would be to be honest. I didn't know, and it was me, and here's or what. I mean, I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, it's easy for me to say I'm not in the situation.
Right. So we just hope that the most important thing is the integrity of the institution. 3 branches of government: executive branch, judicial branch, legislative branch. I come from the legislative branch, so I take great pride and joy in maintaining the integrity of that institution. So I hope whoever he or she might be would try and restore it, and confess, right?
And for those of us watching, we're part of the community that represent Jesus Christ in everything we do. So our integrity should always come out of every pore of our body, in everything we do, in our families and in our workplace. Let us be the ones who restores integrity to this world that needs it so greatly. So make sure you like this video, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell every time so you'll know when we upload a new video, and stay tuned because we've got some Christmas shows coming up, and we'll see all of you next week. Mahalo, everybody.